Good morning, y'all. What's up, and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and we're going to talk about some murder today. We're going to talk about the Fall River Satanic Cult murders. So, this was a series of 3 homicides that happened in Fall River, Massachusetts from October 1979 to February of 1980, and it's allegedly by a satanic cult. Now, this time frame that this happened is during the time in America known as Satanic Panic. So basically, because people were getting really there was a lot of people freaking out because of serial killers. Serial killers were more mainstream, and a lot of people were like, oh, hey, I like him. Oh, hey, I like this. Oh, hey, let's worship the devil. Let's be different. Let's be alternative. A lot of people were turning towards more of like a fundamentalist Christian lifestyle or a evangelist Christian lifestyle. And basically people became more religious due to the fact that this was happening in our country, and a lot of murders took place during this time. These 3 in particular were part of it. I do have plans to talk about the Kelly Day Wilson case, and there's a few other cases that happened during this time frame that they're very interesting due to the fact of what actually happened. So yeah. So if you don't know where Fall River is in Massachusetts. It is basically like, if you've ever seen a map of Massachusetts, you see the boot area. Fall River is down in that southern region. So it's like South Shore. And it's known for being quite a beautiful place. I mean, neighborhood-wise, meh, it's okay, but it's known for being quite a beautiful place. I think it's quite nice down there. I've traveled down there myself, and yeah, I think it's quite nice. But I mean, my judgment is different from everybody else's. Sorry, I'm going through these, and it's. I have a thing for her. Where is it? I have paperwork. You know, you talk about too much murders when literally your notebook is filled with this stuff. Filled. Wrong person. Oh, that's Amy Carnival. Which, by the way, thank you guys. Thank you all of my subscribers, because I'm pretty sure, I haven't checked it, but I'm pretty sure that my video of Amy Carnival hit 800 followers, 800 views, and I'm very, very happy about that. So thank you guys. It makes me really happy to know that you guys are really enjoying my channel and enjoying the stuff that I'm putting out, because, I mean, if not, that would really suck, but still, I can't, but I digress. So basically, the three victims that were involved in this case are Doreen Levesque, Barbara Raposa, and Karen Marsden. Now, there actually is a documentary that's going to be coming out, or it came out in 2021. I didn't see it anywhere. So, and it's called Fall River. It's by Blumhouse, and it's directed by James Buddy Day. So, I mean, I don't know. It's on, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be on Epix. But I mean, yeah. It's supposed to be on Epix. And then there's another one called Occult Crimes. That was on in 2019. So, okay. So, basically, our first murder is committed the night of October 13th of 1979, and this is Doreen Levesque. And she was found under the bleachers at Diamond Vocational High School in Fall River, the following morning, so October 14th. Nobody has ever been convicted in her murder. Ever. Ever. And I will say all three of these murders were pretty gruesome due to, like, the extreme nature of brutality that was used to kill them. It was pretty bad. Our next victim is Barba Raposa, and this was committed on November 7th of 1979, but her body wasn't discovered until January 26th of 1980. So there is somebody that has been convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for her murder, and that is a man named Andy Maltai. We'll get into that. Our third murder is that of 20-year-old Karen Marsden. It's thought that this murder was committed February 8th of 1980, but portions of her skull were discovered on April 13th of 1980. Her body has never been recovered, just the portions of her skull. Now, multiple different people were charged with her murder, but only a man named Carl Drew and a girl named Robin Murphy were ever convicted. Carl Drew was convicted at his trial, and he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Robin Murphy, however, she pled guilty to second-degree murder, and as a part of a plea deal, she agreed to testify on behalf of the prosecution and received a reduced sentence. So, yeah, Doreen, the night she died, basically. She traveled to Fall River to engage in sex worker acts with a fellow worker named Gail. And there are people that report seeing Doreen severely intoxicated downtown at several different places and engaging in sex worker type acts on Pleasant Street. So she was discovered by two different joggers, and they were using the school's running track to, I'm pretty sure they were using it for their morning, like, warm up and stuff. And that's when they discovered her body. Doreen had been sexually assaulted and she was bludgeoned to death. Now, her head was crushed, severely crushed. Yeah. And police were only able to identify her after they put her composite sketch in the newspapers. That's after they were successful in, like, reconstructing her face, due to the fact of, like, how horrifically screwed up. Like, her face was pretty messed up. Yeah, so she was tied up with fishing wire, and her head and her face were crushed with a rock. And she endured forceful penetration due to a baseball bat being shoved inside of her. Yeah. So that is with Doreen's murder. And like I said, nobody has ever been convicted of her murder, but they do, as we get into this case, and like Robin Murphy and Carl Drew, we'll talk about it a little more. So, Barbara was a 19-year-old single mother who had a history of drug abuse issues, and she was a prostitute, or known to have prostituted herself. So she was reported missing on November 7th by her father in 1979 because she failed to pick up her son from the sitter. She was last seen at 8:15 p.m. by a male friend who dropped her off in downtown so that she could continue her sex work. So her autopsy results indicated that she was killed shortly after last being seen, and her body was discovered in a wooded area in the outskirts of Fall River. But like I said, there is a man named Andy Maltai that was convicted of her murder. Yeah, so they were able to identify the skull, the human remains. Um, yeah, they were able to identify who she was due to dental charts from her dentist. Her clothes were identified by her family, but they had to prove it was her by dental charts. So Barbara knew the people around the streets that she was on, which was Bedford Street and Harbor Terrace, and she knew them due to her dabbling in prostitution at the time. Her boyfriend stated that they had gone out to eat at D'Angelo's, after which she decided to go uptown for a few hours to make some money on the street, and that was the last time he saw her. Now, I feel bad for her son because her son was only 4 at the time, and he would be carried by her family after her passing. Um, Also, too, I have not been able to find actual pictures of her face. There's not a lot of photographic evidence when it comes to like what she looks like. So when they found her body, a man was out with his dogs in a wooded area, and it's by Jefferson Street in Fall River, and behind a factory building called the R.E. Smith Company. Her wrists were bound above her head, which her head had been bludgeoned beyond recognition, and likely by like a concrete block or chunks of concrete blocks that surrounded her body. And there was flecks of this concrete found in her head, in her facial wounds as well. She was partially clothed with just her blouse and her bra, and they were in disarray. There was other clothing found nearby, which included jeans and a heavy jacket. There was no purse. There was no identification anywhere near the body. They right then off the bat, there's similarities. They were both bound. They were both beaten in the head, and I mean, I don't. There's no. They don't say whether or not Barbara Raposa was sexually assaulted, but I'm pretty sure she was due to the fact that she was missing her clothes. So her right there, her and Doreen's cases have similarities. They both shared very similar features apparently. Like I've seen pictures of Doreen, but not of Barbara. And from what I've read that they've explained the way that Barbara looks is that they do seem very similar. They both had no pants on and just had their shirts on. They were both found with their wrists being bound. They were both involved in sex work. But police didn't, at the time when Barbara was found, they didn't believe that there was any connection between them. So the man that was eventually convicted of her murder, Andy Maltai. Now, he was 42 at the time. He was significantly older than the rest of the crowd in the area, and he was very connected to the social circles on Bedford Street, which Barbara frequented, man. And he had served time in prison before. So, and when he served time in prison before, it was due to a sexual conviction involving a couple of 15-year-old girls. So Andy had spoken about his girlfriend, which apparently had been Barbara, and he went to the police and told them that she was missing. So when he went to police, now there's a whole thing behind, like, I have, like, everything he went to the police talking about, I have that all written down. I'll probably talk about that in part 2 of this video. But so they apparently had lived together a few years prior, and he claimed to be the father of her son, and this is not verified. They do not know whether or not that her son is his. And that would mean that he would have had to have gotten her pregnant between the ages of 15 and 16. Now, this fits his pattern for abusing young girls. In addition, he apparently had molested Robin Murphy, which is another girl that I spoke about. She'll be in part 2. and when she was about 11, and continued to do so over the years since then. He was interviewed the day after they found her body, and this was with Detective Silva and Joaquim, and they were immediately suspicious of him. Like, he didn't appear very bright. The detectives chose to use his ill equipped intelligence to their advantage, which was pretty smart. um, During their interview with him, he would ramble on and on about he used to be with Satan, and now he's with God, and that he was born again Christian. And Detective Silva tried to steer away from the conversations about this stuff, but it ended up teetering toward the conversation of psychics and claiming that he had a gift for clairvoyance, and that um, he thought Andy thought that he possessed this gift. So Andy also like said that he embraced this gift and he felt special. So Andy kind of turned into an unofficial informant when it comes to this case, due to the sort of relationship that he had with the cops. So the one cop in particular, he worked with the Massachusetts State Police, Corporal Paul Fitzgerald, and he had been working the Doreen Levesque case. And initially, Fitzgerald had been contacted by Andy, who had a tip about Doreen's case. He brought up Robin Murphy and Karen Marsden, which Karen Marsden turns out to be victim number 3 for us that we'll be talking about. And he's the reason why they would bring in Robin Murphy and Karen Marsden to speak with Corporal Fitzgerald. So Robin, when they speak to her, she's more composed and she's more like, Robin is young, okay? She's very young, and during this interview, they see that she's very mature for how she is handling this situation, very composed, very like there. Well, Karen, on the other hand, is a blubbering mess, and she just is crying off and on. And Karen is the one that comes out and says that Carl Drew is responsible for Doreen Levesque's murder, and that she wouldn't be able to say anymore. She refused to even know and say why she said that Carl Drew was involved in this. So Corporal Fitzgerald wasn't really able to do much at this point, because she blurted it out and then retracted it. So they weren't able to get more information out of Andy in regards to Doreen's murder, but Andy continued to contact him on and on and on and on, multiple times a week, just to chat this dude's ear off. Yeah, so, I mean, if you kind of think about it in a weird way, Andy's either trying to be a good guy, or he just doesn't know any better, which, I mean, I think he just didn't know any better. That's why he was eventually convicted. They did, however, talk to, so, because he had been talking with the detectives, so they had him come in and they had him speak with the DA, Ronald Depina. And I found a excerpt when it comes to the conversation between Andy and Pina. So it says, what was in his hand? A knife? A gun? And Andy, 2 hands in the air, something holding in between. And then Pina said, a knife or a gun? From what I could see, it looked like a rock. What was he doing with it? Leaning over, and he was hitting her more, coming hard down on her face. I seen her body jump off the ground, her feet, she was lying on her back, and he was back of her, hitting her, so her body would be lying out down of him. I seen her feet come up, and she was, like, he was really mad at her, coming down with a rug on her face. When did you find out it was Barbara? When I looked around the tree, when she yells out, "Stop," and is looking for me, calling me. You heard her call you? I believe I heard her call, "Andy, help me, stop. Can't stop. Got, gotta go to her." I tried, can't help her or him, can't stop him. She was hollering she was not dead, but she couldn't get up and run. And this was what was bugging me. Something about him over and over hitting her. Was he saying anything? He was mad. Couldn't understand what he was saying. Very angry and violent. Really mad at her for some reason or other, mad at her. Was he calling her names or anything? Well, I think it might have been a love affair. Myself, she had a love affair with somebody, someone who liked her. She double crossed that person, so that led up to the killing, and so on and so forth. Could you think for a minute, Andy, if a man was. Relax, just relax, put yourself back there. Think about the man. What is he saying? You say he is angry. See if you can think of what he said. It would help us. Somehow or other, I can't get his face to move, his mouth. I can see him, but not clearly. All right, and you know he's no little guy. He's a big guy. I can see this, He's a big fellow. And the way his hands, what he had in his hands, it was easy for him to do. That's what I can see myself. He was somebody that knew how to chop wood. And Barbara was saying, "Andy, help me." I think this is why I stepped closer. I was trying to get to him, make him stop, but I can't. So it continued to go on and talk about what happened, and he ends up Peanut brings up Doreen Levesque and her case, and I know there's a lot of sun right now. The sun just came up, but yeah. So he tries to bring up Doreen Levesque, but Andy's very big on talking about Barbara's death. So eventually he gets tried and he's convicted of murder for her. Now, Karen Marsden, she was a 20-year-old mother as well and a fellow sex worker in Fall River. She had frequent contacts with the police. Now, she has already been brought in, questioned when it comes to Barbara's murder. Now, the way she talks to police kind of is why she dies, which I will talk about in part 2 of this video. That way we can kind of have like a culmination of everything and really talk about Carl Drew, because oh my goodness, it's insane. Yeah, so she had frequent contacts with the police, which we already talked about. The night of her disappearance, the police actually questioned her as a potential witness to the murder of Doreen Levesque. So they were talking to her about Doreen. Now, February 9th, 1980, she refused to identify Doreen's killer, and she refused to offer witness protection. Refused an offer of witness protection because she feared for her life. And she asked the police to drop her off at a church in Fall River. She was then reported missing the next day by her grandmother, and then her partial remains were found in Westport, Mass. on April 30th of 1980. Yeah. So that, my friends, we're going to stop this video here, and I am going to talk about the rest of this case in part 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in part 2 of this video.